think I can talk now. Okay, wait for it. Okay, I think I can talk now. I can talk now. Hi, I'm Lace of Lace on Race. I have a lot of things to say today, so I'm going to be doing a series of shorts, Lace on Race hot takes, that's going to speak specifically to the last 15 months, but it's also going to, you really just can't get the light right. But I'm also going to talk about the lessons that we take from the last 15 months. I was going to go see Taco Bell Bobby. There she is. But I also decided that I really wanted to do this, not least because of a thread that we put up talking about Hesed heart. I think the title of it was Welcome to My Flat and Round Table, which is what I'm sitting on right now. My goodness, I love this space. Not just the physical space of Lace on Race, although I do love it. I do love that we finally have a place where I can meet with people and abide and take phone calls like an executive and drink lots of water, usually lots of Diet Cola and, frankly, Crystal Light and the occasional cup of coffee. But no, I love this space. I am so blessed that we have it. Not just for me, although, yes, for me, it is great to be in a place where I can at least somewhat determine the lighting. But it's great for another reason too. This is a tangible place where people can come and be held and loved and succored. It's a place where I can write quietly as I look at things on my wall that give me a gracious reminder of why we do this work. It's also a reminder that this work is tangible. Not everything I do is stuff that you see on the internet. I do a lot of work outside, and I am pleased and proud to be able to do so. There are a lot of things I don't talk about, and we're going to get to the reason why in a hot minute, but there are a lot of things that I don't always talk about. You hear a lot sometimes, well, you don't hear that much because I'm careful not to tell you that much, but you hear sometimes about the struggles, particularly the struggles of the last 15 months. But let me tell you, within those struggles, there has been so much joy. I can't count the number of people with whom I've abided. I can't count, well, actually I can count because we keep a record of the groups and organizations, grassroots, governmental, professional organizations that we have been able to speak to spread the message on Lace on Race, which is, in a nutshell, that change work is, before it's anything else, an inside job. That in order to do the work well as we take it outside, we need to also be able to have strong loins, strong muscles. We need to learn how to be consistently nonviolent, and not just nonviolent in terms of we don't carry a gun, but also nonviolent between our ears. Between our ears. That way, you make sure that your interior matches who you say you are at the exterior. Making sure also that you never visit violence in pursuit of your aims. Can I say this again, because I think it is so incredibly important that we never pursue violence in service to our aims. That is such a big deal. I'm going to bring this up just a little bit to see whether or not I can get the lighting where I want it. Well, this is better than it was, and you can still see Bobby, so it works out. We've seen a lot of violence at Lace on Race in a particular thread, which you can see easily in that Hesed heart table. I actually don't care who's saying it, who's behind the mask of Jenna Marshall. That's not a real person. But it is a real person saying the things that they're saying. You know, there's a lot that I haven't said about the last 15 months. I stand by that. in a real way. I think that circumspection, when you are dealing with someone who is deeply pained and deeply hurt, and wanting to make sure that you are in alignment with every single one of the winning strategies, and making sure that you are never, ever a person that would do the losing strategies. This is a really big deal. Who I am when it's easy is easy. There are a lot of people in my life that are very easy to love. I think of Amber. I think of Keisha. I think of my nieces and nephews. I think of all of these people who hold me well. And of course, it goes without saying, my staff and leadership team. These are women who know how to hold, who know how to love. And that's what I want to give you. But before we can talk about that, we need to talk about this whole cult thing. Jenna says, I'm a cult. And that's gone around a lot. So you need to know a little bit about me. We're going to talk a lot about what I believe in and what I have based both the theses and the methodology of Lace on Race upon. But for now, you need to know a little bit about me. I am a Christian. For some people, that is a dirty word. But I hope that my progressive Christianity is not a deterrent to you. My Christianity informs my racial justice praxis, and my racial justice praxis definitely informs my Christianity. I could pull out some scriptures that would buttress it, both Old and New Testament, but we don't have time for that here because I'm kind of trying to keep it short. But you should know that about me. I go to a mainline church, Vista La Mesa, Disciples of Christ, here in San Diego County. I am also part of the advisory board for Mennonite Mission Network. They have a board, an advisory board of Black thinkers, activists, and clergy, and I am incredibly grateful to have been invited to sit on that panel and to help shape the future of a Mennonite church through a multicultural lens. They know everything about me. They've seen the website. They've seen the Facebook page. They know what I say and what I talk about. They know. And here's where my shirt comes in, because I wore the shirt on purpose. Hope you can see it. I met God. She's a Black woman. Love it. I love it. I'm so careful not to get anything on it, although I have gotten mustard on it. But it came out, so yay. This is such a big deal. Jenna Marshall says that I think I'm God, and that people who hitch their stars to my wagon are deluded cult members. There's a part of me that says this isn't even worth talking about. This isn't even worth justifying or dignifying with a response. But I think it is. I think it is. There's the larger issue of people, and not just me. And this is the part where it can get funky, because I really wish, well, I wish no one was dealing with what I was dealing with and have dealt with for the last 15 months. But I wish it wasn't me in this sense. Anything I say can sound relatively opportunistic. And since she's already diagnosed me with narcissistic personality disorder and so many other things, just basically she threw the DSM-5 right in my face. I don't want to get too much into this. I make it a point not to diagnose people. Not gonna do it. But I can tell when there's hurt. Jenna Marshall, or whoever is behind the fake name and picture of Jenna Marshall, says that she used to be part of Lace on Race. Probably was. That's where sadness comes in, y'all. If she's doing what she's doing, and you'll see it, we actually took some screenshots and we're going to post them up, but we want to make sure that it's not overwhelming. But you can go down to that thread and you can look at it. We've erased nothing. Yeah. She says that I've been obsessed about the last 15 months. She's not wrong. I have. Deep hurt. both to my organization and to myself, was perpetuated. I'm a human being with a mission and a call, and so of course, I felt it. I feel it still. I let her do what she did, up to a point on the website where, because it's a fake name and a fake picture, we found who owns the picture. It's this South African Australian girl who was in some sort of series. I guess it was on HBO. I don't get HBO, so I don't know. But there she was. She was already out of compliance with the website. I don't know how she got in. But here's the thing. That website is meant to be an incredibly safe place. There are things that I will allow on the takeout window that I will not allow at the Lace on Race Cafe, in the bistro, and in the various dining rooms. I'm Goofy Lace, but I'm also the administrator and the leader of this organization, and I have a duty, a very serious duty, to keep the place as safe as possible. We talk about hard things, so it needs to be as safe-ish as possible. She came in, she basically was undoing, or tried to undo everything, all of my theses, all of my methods, telling white women that they don't need to hate themselves, that they need to go easier on themselves, and that I was being mean to them. Luckily, by the time you're in the bistro, you kind of know how I roll, so it's not as though these women took it to heart. Quite the opposite, actually. But she did say something that made me shut the whole thing down. That basically she called them cult members, and that I think I'm God, and that the people who abide with me also think I am God. We need to talk about that. I met God. She's a black woman, but she's not this black woman. Whether or not you take this as allegory or metaphor or not, let's be clear. As my pastor Rebecca said in a sermon that still sticks in my brain, God is God, and I am not. God is God, and you are not. So there's my do I think I'm God theology in a nutshell. I'm not God. If I were God, I think that I'd have slightly slimmer belly fat, and maybe I'd be 4 or 5 inches taller. And if I were a deity, I doubt that deity would have wound up with frontal fibrosing alopecia that made me have to wear wigs. If I'm a god, I'm a really crappy one. But I'll tell you what I hope that I am. That I hope that I am. I'm not God, but I hope I'm godly. I hope I'm a woman of honor. I hope I'm a woman who lives out her gospel call. I hope that I am a woman who, in a secular context, lives out that mission as well. Those of you who know me know that I have been a part of change work. Wow, I start the clock when I'm 18, so 1981, over 40 years. That's a lot. I want to tell you a little bit about my faith journey, because if I'm going to be called a cult leader, you also need to be able to call these institutions cult leaders as well. I grew up in Black Missionary Baptist, moved to Wesleyan Methodist, part of the holiness tradition, and I chose Wesleyan Methodist for 2 reasons. One, very, very, very intellectual. You'd be really impressed with it. And the other one, not so much. The first one is that I had studied Methodism and also had studied the splits and schisms within the Methodist community over the issue of slavery. Wesleyan Methodists got it right, got it absolutely right. And even though they are now pretty far to the right these days, their origin story is a progressive one. I think they would still consider themselves, even when they were more progressive, as part of the small e evangelical stream. But where they stood as to where black and brown people were in the kingdom of God, both up there and right here, because the kingdom of God is very much in the here and now. That's not cult theology. That's your standard issue. You can get it off the rack at any left of center or even centrist church, that the kingdom of God is here. But in any case, Wesleyan Methodist had gotten more conservative as the years gone by, and as I became older, in my late 20s, I embraced pacifism. And that was a big deal for a military girl. I'm a Navy brat. And I decided more and more, particularly after the First World War, first Gulf War. I'm not that old. The first Gulf War, that I was not in alignment with Wesleyan Methodism as it was practiced in the church that I was going to. I want to be very careful to say that. And then I started asking myself, well, if not them, then who? So I did a couple of years of dating different denominations. And I wound up finding, and this was before the internet, y'all. This was late 80s, early 90s, when I started thinking about, all right, I'm a pacifist. I believe deeply in community. I believe deeply in simplicity, however defined. I believe that the kingdom of God is here and now. I believe that violence is not just an AK-47. I believe that violence can be happened through the mouth, through the thought life. Again, that's not cult. And I found myself becoming very enamored with Anabaptists, Mennonites, Church of the Brethren, who is not technically Anabaptist, but they're cousins, Mennonite Brethren, Chodorite, Amish, that. And I found myself wishing, oh my goodness, this is my theology to a T. I wish there was a Mennonite church in San Diego. And then lo and behold, I'm walking to get orange juice down Adams Avenue in Normal Heights, and there's a Mennonite church that just had started. And so I immersed myself in that. And there was deep, and is deep, alignment. Even though I go to a disciples church now, I still consider myself very much an Anabaptist. And there I stayed. I was privileged enough to be asked to sit the board for Pacific Southwest Mennonite Conference, which is a position I held for fully 6 years. I also had a small but real part, partially because I sort of kidnapped the Secretary of General Conference Mennonite Church at a retreat, and he was one of the ones that was guiding and driving the new Confession of Faith from a Mennonite perspective. And so I cornered James Schrage, and I said, hey, you got to put racial justice in there. You have to put, and that back in the day I was calling it anti-racism, you have to put an anti-racism clause in there. And by the time he finished lunch and he knew that I was not going to let him off that bench, he said he'd try. And so it got watered down. Things tend to get watered down. It went from an entire piece, an entire section of the Confession of Faith, and then it went to a couple of paragraphs. Then it went to one paragraph, and incidentally, not in the theology piece, in the lifestyle piece of the Mennonite Confession. You'll find it there. The Mennonite Confession is still there. It's in the lifestyle piece. And there was not a sentence, but a clause where they were talking about other isms, right? And so they also talked about anti-racism. And I count that as a win. So now Mennonite Church USA, which happened when Mennonite Church and General Conference Mennonite Church welded together, has an anti-racism clause in that. And I had a small, very small, microscopic piece of that. But I'm in there. I'm in there. And so when I separated from my husband and I went to find another church, I found myself at a Methodist church, and then St. Paul's Episcopal Cathedral here in San Diego. And then I found myself here. And this is my home for life, y'all. Vista La Mesa, Christian Church Disciples of Christ. I believe in their theology. I agree with it. Got some pieces, parts. They're not nearly as pacifist as I am. I wouldn't call them pacifist at all. But, how they do community, both in terms of their internal documents and in terms of how it's lived out, is something that I can get behind. And I do. And I do. That's a big deal, y'all. It's a really big deal. And so when, over these last 15 months, the cult leader pejorative has been lobbed at me, I think about, wow, these people don't know me at all. At all. I shouldn't even have to entertain the idea of whether or not I am a cult leader. But I do, apparently. And so here we are. Now we move to Hesed. Hesed when it's hard. Hesed when you kind of sometimes don't want to, because someone is certainly not showing Hesed to you. One of the things that I said to one of my friends in leadership team was that I do not understand studied and chronic and intentional harm and violence, nor do I want to. But apparently the person who calls me a cult leader is willing to do some pretty heinous stuff. We'll talk about that more in the other shorts, because this is turning out to be not so short. I do strive to be a godly woman. An Esther. Melded with her Uncle Mordecai. In and out of the gates. Speaking truth to power, and when I'm inside the gates, making sure that I don't shut up. That's been one of the things that we have made it a point to do at Les Sunrays. When groups or corporations or governmental entities or grassroots entities want us to be consulting with them, we make sure they know what they're buying. And most of them stick around. I'm going to talk in the next live about why I don't always talk about, like what I said earlier, don't always talk about the good stuff. But part of it is because of people who are intentionally and willfully and gleefully cruel. Do what you want to me, but don't harm other people. And if that means that I have to keep, as is biblically prescribed, what I do on the down low, because I'm not looking for applause, not looking for accolades, not looking for Activist of the Year awards that I can stick on the wall. I just want to do good work. And it doesn't matter. And one of the ways of doing good work and making sure is that now that I know that there are people who lock and load on me and are relentless and will not let up, do you really think that I would expose the people with whom I partner and stand with to that level of hatred and vitriol? Try again. I will not. I will not. Y'all are either going to believe me or not when I say what we do, and because we are an official nonprofit. Oh yeah, we're an official nonprofit. I didn't even talk about that yet. We've been awarded nonprofit status for half a year now, and it was retroactive all the way back to January 2021 when we first filed the papers. So we have been a nonprofit for that long. I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want lock and load. Our books and our ethos and our mission are good enough for the IRS. Now let me be clear here when I say this, because you know kind of how I feel about the racist and classist nature of nonprofit formation, and here we are in the thick of it. But it's a pretty brutal process. We actually were wondering if we were going to get it, because we did not dilute North Star, lessening and mitigating the harm endured by black and brown people, perpetuated by white people and white supremacy. We did not dilute our method. We did not dilute how and to what percentage we give funds. The IRS was like, no one does that. And it's like, well, yeah, we do. But yeah, we got the letter. But I didn't want to talk about it. In the same way I didn't want to talk about finally having a stove with 4 burners and a griddle in the middle. Because there are people who would and have weaponized it. Just like today, when someone weaponized the fact that my dog died in 2020. What kind of character do you have? The way you treat companion animals, Lace. They were talking about Tika Rose, who in 2020, before she died, was a co-star with me on many a video. Snuffle, snuffle, snuffle. Food reinforcement. Stuffle, stuffle, stuffle. Trying to lay on my computer. I miss her so much. And the very idea that someone would use that as a napalm bomb is unthinkable to me. I can't imagine being a person who would choose to do that. But they did. I'll talk about Tika and dealing with Bob's, my father called her Bob, so it's easy, dealing with my mother Bobby's experience in and out of ICUs and nursing homes and the like. She was in the ICU the day I found out my dog was missing, when she didn't come up off the couch like she usually does at 6 a.m. And I told that story to my team, and one person chose to weaponize it and is still doing it. Everybody knows, and I don't talk a lot about it. I don't lead with it, but I'm upfront about it. People know about my neurodiversity. People know about my intractable level 50 treatment-resistant depression. People know about my complex post-traumatic stress disorder because of childhood trauma. They weaponized every bit of it. Every bit of it. Who does that? Who does that? I want to pivot really fast in the next short, that will be shorter than 27 minutes, to talk about Hesed when it's hard. I might change the title of this one, because it is hard to see someone basically give you body blows again and again and again for over a year and still hold them with Hesed, to refuse to do and to be the person that they are to me. And to allow myself to be used as a lightning rod, because if they're locked and loaded on me, maybe they won't harm other people, although that's questionable. As we say in Lace on Race, we get you in on race, we keep you on relational ethics. You're going to be able to see that entire thread. Go to it, read it. And if what you see, because there is a lot of daylight between the person who says they're Jenna and who I am, you're going to see it. You're going to see it. Along with some other community walkers, you're going to see it. And there's going to be no way that, I think, there could be no way of you taking a middle ground and declaring yourself Switzerland. If you think I'm a cult leader, you shouldn't be in. Save yourself. Run! Run to Jenna! If you're not quite sure, I have 5 years of videos, well, almost 5 years of videos and essays where you can do a deep dive into my psyche and my soul and my character. You can't do that with Jenna, but you can do it with me. And you get to decide whether or not I'm a person worth listening to or not. Jenna thinks I care a lot about numbers. She keeps on mentioning about how many people left. I actually have done some research on board member and staff attrition in nonprofits. Let's take a look at that. I should do it in another video, but we're on it now, and I might repeat it. I might repeat myself a couple of times, but you know I'm old. You got to give it to me. Attrition is usually a lot worse than what we've had. In the last 3.5 years, because I used to be a solo shop, in the last 3.5 years, we've had about 20 people in leadership, either in staff positions or as part of leadership team, which is also board. And if I count Chef's Table, who is kind of the farm team for leadership, there's more of them. I've lost 5 since 2018, since 2019. Since 2019, I've lost 5. And they would like you to believe that that is an indictment of the cult leader. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Some have been good buys. Some have been, as Beth Moore says, bad buys. That's okay. I ask a lot, and I ask even more of my staff and leadership team, both in terms of competence, but crucially also in terms of the relational and the ethical. And if you cannot live that out, I'm not going to change my requirements to fit what you're doing. You can level up to me. That doesn't make me a cult leader. That makes me a woman who does her best to be a godly woman of honor. And in terms of people leaving in droves, as Jenna said, scores and scores of people have left. We actually have more eyeballs now than we did in February 2021. That's just on internet platforms. I'm not even talking about the work that we do outside. So we're good. We did lose financially. And now that I've disclosed that we are an official nonprofit, so you don't have to worry about if your money's going into a black hole, maybe that'll change. Maybe those of you who are here will see that. But if not, it doesn't mean we stop. It means that we sometimes are going to have to make hard decisions. How many community partners a month? Do I get to hire an intern and give college credits and a stipend to here in San Diego, because I could use one? How many people do I give pro bono services to? Because not everybody can afford us, even at a discounted rate. And that is why the community stepping up allows me to say yes to grassroots organizations and individuals who can't pay us. I want to say something else before I leave this not very at all short video. Even despite everything, Lace on Race is still here. The Center for Racial Equity is still here doing policy and behind the scenes work. That's a big deal because so many are gone. And those who would rise up see what's happening here. And my God, it's so hard to mentor these young people when they say, I do have something to say. And I go, yes, you do. You have something to say and you should say it. And then they say, but what if what happened to you happens to me? What if someone decides to try to assassinate my character? And I don't have a good answer for them, because they are taking a risk that will happen. And it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. Jenna and her compatriots and her colleagues, which may or may not include my ex-intern, it does. They wouldn't have known about my dog dying otherwise. Excuse me. Are going to do what they do, and they're not going to go away. In a perverse kind of way, I'm glad they're choosing to lock and load on me. I have a body of work that I'm proud of. I get to do amazing work with and for other people. And in my own very small circle of influence, despite what Jenna says, there's a modicum of respect there. But they have been effective. They've been effective in not just attempting to assassinate my organization, and I say that with absolute intention, and attempting to assassinate my psyche and my soul. Because who else would do and say the things they do and say if they didn't want me balled up in a corner over there rocking? And if they do it to me, they'll do it to others. So if their end game is for me to very easily, actually, click the button that ends Lace on Race and shut down the website. Right now it's down because of Buddy Boss, in case anyone's wondering. Buddy Boss changed things. There are web hosts, or I think that's what it's called, the web host. Anyway, we're working on it. It'll probably be back up by the end of the weekend. And yeah. But if anyone thinks that I'm going to stop doing what I'm called to do, try again, y'all. No. I don't have permission to do that. I don't have permission from Bobby. I don't have permission from the Lord that I serve. I don't have permission from the lives I have been blessed and honored and privileged to touch. That's the last thing I'm going to say. It's amazing how much time they spend on my website telling me how obsessed and narcissistic I am. Lots and lots and lots of time. And apparently there's a gaggle of people who are a group of people whose raison d'etre is to do just exactly this. And they feed off of each other. I can't imagine a person or a group of people who would do that. And so I run. I run back to my leadership team. I run back to the people who love me here in San Diego. I run back to the website. And I run back to the person, to the being, to the universe that gave me this charge. If you are with Jenna, there will be a place for Jenna to drop all of her links to whatever group she has. It's not Jenna. Jenna's fake, but we're going to just go with Jenna. Whatever groups that Jenna has, so that you can learn how to do racial justice and applied relational ethics her way. I did that to Daniel Werner a couple of months ago. I actually opened up a whole new post where he could lay out his indictments. And it's never about methodology. It's never about premise. It's never about theses. It's never about praxis. Because frankly, they can't. I'm going to sound really arrogant and borderline narcissistic. We do good work. My premise is sound. My methodology, if you choose to follow it, is also sound. Whether you're here with me 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, God willing, knock on wood, the next 20. I'll be 78 by then. And hopefully someone else will be leading this joint. But we're not going away. Neither are they. And so now you have both an object lesson to learn from and a praxis and a way of doing and being to shore up your muscles here in our practice space, our lab, what I'm now calling our gym. Or not. I wake up in the morning and the first thing I think about is the North Star. And am I going to live it out today? And then by the time I go to bed, that's the same thing I ask myself. Did I live out North Star? Loving Jenna Marshall and Daniel Werner and their compatriots is part of that love. People don't change unless they're loved. People who watch the carnage, because that's what it's been. People who watch the carnage will change or not. They'll dip their toe in. They'll become even a millimeter closer to the person they say they want to be. And at the end of the night, when I'm brushing my teeth, I count that as a win. I've already said this in another video. I don't have 10,000 followers. I mean, that's what the numbers say. But I don't. Daniel Werner is right. And so is Jenna when they use that as a weapon too. If you are not actively availing yourself of the resources of Lace on Race, then no, I don't have ya. If you're here to rubberneck, I don't have you. If you're here to applaud and egg on the people who are unspeakably unkind. Still can't believe they said that about my dog. And also, Holly actually said something about my mother a year and a half ago. That was great. If I teach you nothing else, it's not to be that person. Do not be these people. You may not want to work with me or walk with me, but there are thousands, literally millions, of books and websites and Facebook pages and groups where you can plug in and become closer to the person you say you want to be. If not me, then who? Do I hope it's me? Yeah, but it doesn't have to be. We exist as a back-end sort of way to get you equipped to be able to do good work outside. If that's what you want, to be able to do good work in your local, regional, state, and national communities, maybe we got a thing or two to say to you, and maybe you might want to stick around. But if not, go somewhere else and do good work. Fund them. Support them. If anything like what you see here at Lace on Race happens to them, you step up. You step up. And you learn how to do that here. You learn how to hold your own hand here. You learn how not to slosh green slime and feces on people like Jenna, and Daniel and their colleagues have done. And you learn how to take it outside and make sure, if nothing else, that this doesn't happen to anybody else. Or not. Or not. Your choices are your choices, just like Daniel's choices are Daniel's choices, and Jenna's choices and Jenna's choices, and my intern's choices were my intern's choices. The cult leader invites you, implores you, directs you to use your own critical faculties, to use your own discernment, to figure out first who you want to be, who you say you want to be, and who you say you want to be. Those are three very different people. My job, my holy task, is to try to make as little daylight as possible between those three persons. That who you are is actually really close to the person you say you want to be. You're never going to get perfect. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to harm people. But there's a difference between harm and studied intentional violence. And I want you to learn that piece too. I love you guys. I'm going to do more of these, but first I'm going to find something to eat because I haven't eaten all day because of the mishegoss that was going on the page. That you can look at. Hold on. I'll make sure that you know exactly where it is. And then, there it is. Hold on. It will look like this. Welcome to my flat and round table. And you'll see it all there. I'm 58 years old. I can't believe it got bright now. I did that one thing and now it's bright. And now it's not bright anymore. I don't know. Anyway, I'm 58 years old. I've been working on being the woman that sits before you now her entire adult life. Her entire adult life. And I realize, even as I speak to you, that it's not as bad as it could be. One of my mentors, who I deeply respect, Beth Moore, has actually gotten death threats. Death threats, real death threats, for the position that she's taken about the Southern Baptist Convention, their very disappointing stance on sexual violence within that denomination, and they're also, after their 1996, yay, what they're looking like in terms of racial justice in 2022. She was eviscerated for it, as was Russell Moore, who also got death threats from presumably Southern Baptists. There's a lesson here. That just because people say the right things and they're in the right clubs doesn't mean that they are living out Hesed heart. I'm sure that the person who gave, or the people who gave death threats, put on their tie, or if they go to one of the newfangledy churches, put on their cargo shorts and went to church with what they feel is a clean conscience. That's exactly what's happening here. And you get to choose. There are lots of ways you can choose, but I will give you one way not to. Don't be them. Don't be them. You don't have to follow me. No. You don't have to listen to a thing I say. But now you cannot say you don't know what negative identification or a negative example looks like, and who you are after you know now is the measure of your character. I don't say that I have a good character. I say that I have a gooding character. I-N-G. I am a woman who is honoring. I am godly-ing. Because hopefully tomorrow I will be a more godly woman than I am today. Hopefully tomorrow I will be a more honorable woman than I am today. And I'm going to be that person whether or not I'm alone or whether or not I have people walking with me. It's that simple, y'all. I have met God in my prayer life, in my thought life, in the way that I am moved and led to speak and do in the world. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There is always an empty chair here at this flat and round table, just like there is always a full sugar Pepsi for Mama. If you have any questions at all, put them underneath. I'll answer every single one. Make sure that you read everything. That by now there's like 100+ comments. I know that's a lot. I want you to read it anyway. If you're going to stand with black and brown people, and crucially, if you're going to stand with this black and brown person, yeah, take the 20 minutes it takes to scroll. Because one of the things we're also going to be learning is how to be a person of relentless reliability. And that means not shielding your eyes or turning away when violence happens. I love you. Talk to you later. I'm going to end the live video now as soon as I can figure out. Here we go. Ending it.